Well, Ilya, I'm going to ask you, how do you say your last name as we start the podcast here?
Tlumach. Tlu like blue and mach like watch. Tlumach.
Okay. So that's what we're going to go with for his last name. His first name is Ilya, which you said something really fascinating when I asked you that earlier. It's Ukrainian for
Elijah.
For Elijah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Well, thank you for stepping up to the line and having a real and honest conversation. You were very willing to do that. I know you're a busy guy running not only one organization, but you guys have purchased and acquired another organization. So welcome to feeling pulled in multiple directions.
Thanks for having me, Joshua.
Yeah, my pleasure. And I think, we've had some meetings and some conversations, and I think what you're doing is really cool. And I think it aligns with what we're trying to do in lifting the view of the trades. And so I think that you bring some really important insights into this. So I'm glad to have this conversation with you.
Appreciate it. Likewise. I was looking forward to it.
Well, as we sit here in our studio in South Central Pennsylvania, we're not on the job site like we normally would be. I've done a podcast with JM Lapp before, which is the company that you are leading, and with your founder in a non-air conditioned warehouse where I was sweating buckets. So this is a much
that
nicer,
was on me. That was a terrible.
This is a
terrible
much
setup.
nicer podcast.
Well, appreciate the AC.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about your origins, and because you don't have the typical story of a tradesman, and you're leading and managing JM Lapp, which tell us a little bit, like JM Lapp specializes in what?
Yeah, plumbing, heating, cooling, water treatment. Started as a plumbing and hydronic company.
Okay.
Got into air conditioning 10 years ago. We specialize in new install and service. So both light commercial and direct to consumer, homeowner, and business owner, both for replacement and service.
I remember the podcast that I did with your founder, and he made a very interesting comment to me of something that he learned through the origins of your company when you guys started doing air conditioning, and it stuck with me. Matter of fact, the business mind that I have, it made me think, ooh, that's a really good business opportunity. He said, people are far more freaking out. I'm trying to think of a better way to say freaking out, but far more intense.
Desperate.
That's the word, right where I'm going. When they don't have AC in the heat of the summer versus when they don't have heat in the cold of the winter.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to me.
The calls, I often check calls on the weekend, and the level of intensity on the no AC calls, you think something is terrible happening, but it is. People like their comfort, and that discomfort of heat gets people agitated, and we love come out and serve and take care of the situation.
Well, and that's really cool that you guys exist in the way that you do. And the other thing that I think is really exciting is the reality of the need. You're in, there are multiple industries, and I won't say who they are because I don't want to make anyone feel left out. But there are some industries in the trades that are not as desperate for workers and knowledge as others. And, I'm an electrician by trade. I think that's a very desperate trade right now for knowledge and workers. But I also think the HVAC industry is hugely desperate for knowledge and workers. Mm-hmm. And I would say it's at the same level as far as the things that go on from a knowledge standpoint in knowing how to troubleshoot systems and knowing how to do different things. I remember a few years ago, I had a rental property and I called a plumber, and they sent someone out to do it. And this is not a bad thing, but it's a reality. It was a young man, and he couldn't figure out the problem. Because often when we call people, it's an emergency. And in this case, it was. Sewage was overflowing. And the young man came out, and I say young man, he might have been 28 or 30. So came out, could not figure out the problem. And gave us a bill, left, but the problem wasn't fixed. And so I called their office, and they were extremely gracious. And I would say if you're listening, this is really important. In the skilled trades industry, especially when it comes to homeowners and service, we're dealing with a shortage of knowledge and craft understanding that is unprecedented. And I would say you can only be frustrated or complain if you can tell me how the pyramids were built, because it's kind of the same issue. Mm-hmm. There's a knowledge that is lost that we need to maintain. So in this situation, I was frustrated because they came out and they sent me a bill, which don't be surprised when you get a bill because they paid to send someone out. They paid them to look at it. Just because they can't figure it out, you take your car to the shop. If they can't figure out the solution, you still get a bill. That's how it works. We all have bills to pay and mouths to feed. But this was the cool part. I called their office and I said, hey, the problem's not fixed. I have a $700 bill for a service call. And they said, oh, we are so sorry. To their credit, they sent the young man back out. And I say young man, that 28 years old. But they sent him out with a 68-year-old guy that ran the service department because he had the experience, which you can't tap into. And I share this only to say this is one of the biggest issues in the trades. So that 68-year-old man came out with him because he was able to look at the problem and be like, oh, this is the issue. Mm-hmm. This is why that doesn't work. This is why this is doing that. And there is no substitute for that mentorship. There is no substitute for that knowledge.
No, not at all. Yeah. Because after knowledge is the ability part as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I often hear, plumbing, how difficult can it be? Things flow downhill. And I've learned to say, because I'm not, as you said, I'm not a plumber by origin.
Right.
I went into this business 3 years ago. And I say, I've learned a few things about plumbing. It's not just things flow downhill. You need venting and you need the right. Yeah. There's a lot of things to make a plumbing system work properly. And so that often gets overlooked or, like you said, discounted. But
well, I think that's one of the things that, and honestly, plumbers in general get the brunt of the rest of us. Mm-hmm. Because I remember being on a trip when I was a young man working at an orphanage in a third world country. And I was put on a plumbing crew to help build part of the orphanage. And I asked the guy, well, I don't know anything about plumbing. He said, no, that's fine. There's only 3 things you need to know. And I know you've heard these things because everybody says them for over 50 years. Gray water, that's a nice way of saying poop, flows downhill. Payday's on Friday, hot's on the left, cold's on the right. I got that last one right, didn't I?
I think so.
Okay, all right, good. But there's so much more than that. We oversimplify things, which is the problem of what we have done as a society and a culture with the trades in general, is we've oversimplified and we've even looked down on the men and women who do that work because it's not as simple as gray water flows downhill. Without a vent, it doesn't. And it doesn't work the way that you want it to. So having said all of that, here we are, and you're managing and running, you're a president of JM Lapp, which has also acquired another company recently. You're growing, you're expanding, and your experience, your origins don't come out of the trades, do they?
No, they don't.
So let's talk a little bit about, and I'm going to shut up for a while. I've been talking a lot here, so I apologize. If you're listening, you don't tune in to listen to my voice. Ilya, tell me about where you started and how you ended up where you are. And if you don't mind, I think some of your origins, even going back a little further, like, your name reveals a little bit about where you come from. Start with that, where you come from, how you got here, and what you're doing.
Yeah. So Ilya, as I've said, Ukrainian. So I'm a son of parents who were persecuted for their faith in the Soviet Union.
Come on.
My dad was born in 26. I like to always go there because that's shocking. That's typically, my peers would say, oh, that's my grandpa's age. Actually, that's older than my grandpa.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, that's
1926, not 2026.
Yeah, 1926. And I say that because he was a survivor of oppression, totalitarian state. Stalin did 15 years in the gulags.
Your dad?
My dad, yeah.
Wow.
So just to quickly give some of that context, because I appreciate you asking. It is important. It does inform a lot of what I write about, what I talk about, what I like to celebrate here in the U.S. And that is for having a different, perspective. He gets 10 years in prison under Stalin for being Ukrainian. After that, he finds faith and leads in a local church, an underground church, as some would know it as. It wasn't a sanctioned, registered institution. It was just a group of believers, Christians that got together, and they were persecuted. And he and others were imprisoned for 5 years.
Wow.
In a work camp. And so that takes him from 16 to mid-30s. He doesn't get out and get married until 40.
So wait, just to give some context here. He went to prison for 10 years for being Ukrainian.
Yeah, working at a feed mill that fed the Ukrainian army.
So that would be like me being Canadian and going to prison because I was Canadian, which that's understandable. But so he went to prison for 10 years for that, came out, believing in Christ, believing in the Lord, talking about his faith, being unsanctioned, and because of that, went to prison again for another 5 years.
Another 5 years. And had every opportunity to leave early just by denouncing his faith, and didn't take that opportunity.
So just, and I'm not meaning to interrupt you, but just to be clear, they would have let him out of prison if he would have denounced his faith.
Yeah. It was a psychological warfare type stuff where it's like, just sign here, denounce your faith in Christ, we'll burn it, and you walk free. And he said, the sign in says...
I'm getting chills.
Yeah, well, me too.
Yeah.
He says, the sign out of here says, in with a guilty conscience, out with a clean conscience. And he said, I'm walking out. I came in with a clean conscience, and I'm walking out with a clean conscience. I'm not walking out with a guilty conscience.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That is quite a
legacy. Choke me up, brother.
Yeah, well, and wow,
Yeah.
what a heritage to carry. That's impressive.
So that's my dad. My mom is a hero of in my life as well. She was actually in the church. She was 14 years younger. Never saw him as her future spouse. Ended up marrying him and having 11 kids.
11.
11. And I'm 10. So I'm glad for their goals and convictions to have a large family. And so I'm one of 10. My mom, as I said, a part of the story is she was a human rights activist. No other way of saying it. During the Cold War, she helped send the word that Christians were being persecuted in the Soviet Union for their faith.
Wow.
And so as a result, 12 years of asking the state to leave on our own as refugees to seek asylum. We were persecuted for that, denied all sorts of opportunity. My older siblings, I never went to school there. I was 7 when we finally did get out.
So you actually were there in your lifetime.
I was born in Ukraine.
Wow.
Western Ukraine, sorry.
Wow.
So in 89, we came here. I was 7, did not speak, as they say, a lick of English. Went right into first grade, was held back because I didn't know any English. And back then, I guess the pedagogy of learning English was you sit in the hallway while everybody else is studying. And you look at, here's something you haven't heard, microfiche film, probably for a while.
Wow.
Remember that? Like, learning English in a hallway through some kind of old school technology with. So anyhow, learn English. All that to say, went to Garden Spot, Lanka School District. They did end up getting a ESL and learn English. So anyway, that's a deeper dive into my origin.
That's pretty awesome. That's what these stories are really truly about.
Yeah, but my dad was a lay pastor, meaning he worked in the church as a volunteer.
Yeah,
and so my roots there. During the day, he was a pipe fitter in a power plant. So I do have a connection to the trades.
Come on,
in that sense, but he didn't. Pass that on to us in any other way other than that's what he was skilled. He did what he needed to do. Was always a mechanic. Always had tools, but everything was locked up all the time. Everything was under lock and key.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that's something that's fascinating that we forget. Our culture and our society is very affluent here in America. And listen, I love that. I like air conditioning. I am one of the people that would call you and be like, it's hot. So Having said that, I think our affluence sometimes makes us forget. And when you talk about, his faith and he was a lay pastor, it's like, one, if you read the Bible, that's Paul. Paul was a tent maker by trade, but yet he shared the gospel.
Yeah.
Even in the founding of our country, here we are, we're recording this podcast days before celebrating 250 years of independence, the United States of America. A lot of people don't realize this about our founders. All of us can complain about politicians, and we can complain about our culture and our society and the way that it is. But like your father, the origins in politics here in the United States, politicians used to be businessmen and people who had jobs that volunteered their time for the good of the country.
Yeah.
And that's an entirely different type of person. Like your dad was a lay pastor because he believed it, but yet then he did a job to make money to provide for his family.
Yeah. No, the sacrifice, seeing it firsthand.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Helping carry the burden of just your people, your tribe, your community.
The importance of us remembering that in the culture of affluence that we have right now, even here in America, like those cultures and those things and those experiences and that hardship doesn't not exist in the world today.
Oh yeah.
It truly does.
That's more the norm.
It is more the norm. I read, and I've said this on the podcast before, but it's worth saying again. If you make $33,000 or $35,000 a year, which is not a lot here in America, you're in the top 1% of the world. The world. Yeah. That's pretty fascinating. Yeah. And there are people in America that would be like, I can't live on $35,000 a year. I might be one of them. But the reality is, and that's another interesting statement when we talk about it, what you can or can't live on. Yeah. But yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So
that's deep, man.
Yeah. I'd love to, from a career perspective, I can share some more if you'd like.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So you came in here to the States, you learned English, you went through all of that. And did both your parents come or just your mom? Okay. Wow.
Yeah, both parents and our grandma.
Wow. That's really cool. So then you enter into a career, and even your career, when you entered into a career, was not in the trades, was it? Tell us about that.
Well, I guess what's not on my public profile is Morgantown Masonry. I did start in masonry.
Really?
Yeah. I was a laborer and I was a driver.
One of the trades out there.
Yeah. Absolutely loved it. I was a cook. I was a short order cook all through high school.
Yeah.
I saw Water's Edge mini golf being built across the parking lot in Burnham. I said, I want to be doing what those guys are doing and not smell like a French fry at the end of the night. I love it. So I went into masonry, did a co-op in masonry for a summer, came back and did another summer. And I said, I don't think this is for me. I think I'm going to go to college because I love tech ed. I love teaching.
Yeah.
And so I was a driver. I was a plane crew. So they needed a driver and they needed a pettibone operator.
Oh man,
a boom lift. So I would mix the mud.
Oh yeah.
They would say, yell at me, mud boy. So I would mix the mud, cut brick, and deliver. My safety training then was, here's a VHS, watch it. You're signed off.
Oh, that's awesome.
All that say, that doesn't give me enough experience to say I'm from the trades, because I'm not. That was my experience to say, I think I want to keep trying other things. And so I went to college.
Wow.
Went into technology, worked at UPS all through college at night, 5 days a week. Ended up going into sales, logistics, went into global logistics with DHL. So I was about 12 years after college. And then I shifted into nuclear power generation, where we did project management and maintenance.
Really?
I was in an office role, continuous improvement role, safety culture, training. So in some ways, that's the trades, but not through, like up in through the trades, which that in itself you were never really one of the group.
Yeah.
You're, often seen as an outsider.
Yeah.
If you don't come in from within the trades. But
it's probably really helpful for you in what you're doing today to know the taste of what that's like.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because around the table were nuclear engineers, nuclear power operators, some of the smartest people in the world. And then there's Boilermakers and pipe fitters and electricians. And, what I learned from that is what I brought to the table. I didn't need to flex my experience, what I did in masonry for 2 summers. I didn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
What I brought was something totally different.
Yeah.
And so playing to my strengths of what they needed around safety culture, around the human performance side of, risk mitigation, around continuous improvement, collaboration. And so did that for 8 years, and then got my MBA, and wanted to, just always a student, always learning. And fortunately I had a boss who really supported that. So I did every other Friday and Saturday executive cohort model.
Okay.
And so through that, really got the bug for entrepreneurship. There was a business case about entrepreneurship through acquisition.
Oh, it's a bug.
It's a bug. Yeah. There's a lot written on that. Like maybe more than a bug. It can be an episode.
Yeah. Yes.
So
it is an episode. You have to be a little nuts.
Yeah. That's what I keep learning. And so, but that said, took some paths to try to explore that, and doors closed there. And was in a business group with Matt Lapp, founder of JM Lapp, and in that, the company I was with was selling the division I was a part of, the power company, and so I started looking. I activated my network, as I like to say. I said, hey, I don't want to move to Charlotte. If they sell and move to Charlotte, that's, just once again, I overthought it because that never happened. They never sold. But all that to say, within my network, I moved into international produce. So became a GM of an international produce import company, part of Four Seasons Produce locally.
I know that company. Yeah, they're not
great
small.
Great company, and had great opportunity, great people. That said, 2 years later, followed a former boss into the drone business, drone delivery for Walmart. And so I went from nuclear power to produce to aviation via drone. So that said, that was a startup. That was 2 years, but felt like 7. It was just
That's because you were working with the government. That's why.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have the pleasure of that. Actually, I had the pleasure of spending other people's money, as they say.
That's a fun pleasure to have. I don't get that very often.
Yeah,
but it's
it
fun.
is. If anybody has an opportunity to do that, it is exhilarating. But it could be you're growing. It's about market share. It's about learning, rapid iteration. That's a startup world.
It sounds like a whole new. It's a black line business model. If you have money that you want us to spend for you, please reach out to us at www.blacklineltd.com. We can help you out with that.
Pitch the business model. Tell them that the total addressable market is billions, and money will start flowing.
Wow.
So
that is crazy.
And then you can use that money to prove out that case or not.
Wow.
So 2 years of that, and I had my first layoff. Never thought. So I made a lot of changes through all that.
Yeah.
This was the first time where I was laid off, and my first phone call, I was driving to Virginia Beach because it was a Virginia Beach-based company, was to Matt Lapp. And I said, Matt, quick question for you. Sounds like you're having dinner. I still remember where I was at. And I said,
it's funny how that works.
Do you still want to become the Chick-fil-A of plumbing and heating? And in his Dutchy accent, he said, I do. I said, all right, well, let's get together. And he had said years ago in his business peer group, he said, I want to become the Chick-fil-A of plumbing and heating.
Yeah.
And here's the crazy part. I had engaged Chick-fil-A to want to become an operator with them years ago.
Wow.
And went to pretty far down the line. They didn't select me.
Yeah.
So I knew exactly what that meant around process, around training, around culture.
That context is important.
Yeah. And that always resonated. I have a local guy here that has this vision to take a plumbing and heating company and build it on something scale it beyond 1 or 2 locations. So, I joined 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years here in a week or so, as a chief growth officer, leading HR, sales and marketing, and then a year and a half in, moved into the president role. And the last year and a half has just been understanding the business model, refining the business model, getting clear on what we're really, really good at, and building the team. And so what I love about where I'm at now is it is as essential as it gets. We heard that word essential during COVID a lot. But this is as essential as it gets.
It's one of the greatest things that came out of COVID.
I agree.
It's one of the greatest things.
And here's the thing. What I love about that is everybody's essential.
I 100% agree.
So the idea that, like you said, the plumbers get the short end of the stick because people say doctors, lawyers, and plumbers, or plumbers and doctors. Here's the thing. That's a false dichotomy.
Oh, it is. Fun fact.
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you here. But fun fact, statistically, and this is true, plumbers have saved more lives by far than doctors because of clean water.
Yeah. Do you know what a lot of languages call plumbing?
No.
Like literally translated, sanitation technology.
Wow.
Russian santechnika, sanitation technology, right? So that's sanitation, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So
let's break it up here just for a second. I love that I have to interrupt you. Like, I love that because you're passionate about what you're talking about. You're passionate about what you're doing. But let's break it up a little. I want to ask you a question. Totally off topic. We're going to come back to what we're talking about here. What is a tool or a piece of gear that you cannot live without? Something that you use every day, something that you need. I jokingly told you earlier, and I say this all the time on air, don't say your phone. And I realize that's a huge tool in our society, but that's an easy answer. So give me a real answer.
Yeah. I've had time to think about it because I've watched a few of your podcasts.
Okay.
Well,
I'm glad that we have one subscriber. That's good.
No. It's more than one, man. You're making an impact, Joshua.
Well,
you
I
really
appreciate
are.
that.
So, yeah, thanks for what you're doing. You are lifting up the view of the trades and encouraging people. So, for me, it was going to be between shoes and chair. And so I'm going to choose chair.
Okay.
And the reason for the chair is...
you have watched, because I was going to ask you why.
Yeah, I use it at home. It's the first thing I do is I get into my thinking chair, my reading chair, my writing chair, my chair. And then the first investment I made at JM Lapp, they say ask for permission or ask for forgiveness.
Oh, I totally know what you're talking about.
So I didn't ask for permission.
Yeah.
I just said, Matt, we're going to need 2 nice chairs for the office because in the line of work that I do with people is we're going to have to get comfortable.
Yeah.
And so they got 2 nice leather chairs at JM Lapp.
Obviously, this is something that I value. I don't know if you noticed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, the chair, there's either walk and talk or let's sit down and talk.
Yeah.
And those are 2 very different.
They are very different.
Both
very important, but very different.
Yeah. And so for me, the chair is where a lot of unlocking happens.
Yeah, I would agree. It's interesting. My team years ago when I was running the first company that I founded, they'd be like, "Where's Josh?" And the office started this term where they'd be like, "He's on a walkabout." Mm-hmm. And I would go for a walk when I had to make certain phone calls and when I had to have certain conversations. Mm-hmm. And these chairs actually started in my office as chairs that I would sit down. Then once I've had a walkabout, they're 2 different things, but like the things when the walkabout got me thinking, but when I would sit down, that's when I was able to apply whenever I was thinking about and unlock the resources of how. And so I totally respect and understand what you're talking about and the importance of, especially certain people. Certain people are more attracted to a walkabout than they are to sitting down. Because when you sit down, you're locked in. Like you and I are having a real conversation right now. And you can't get away. We locked the doors, by the way, in case you were wondering.
I'm staying.
Yeah. But I mean, so I get, that's really, no one has ever said that before.
Really?
So I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
That's cool.
The chair. Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Great investment.
I like that. So why JM Lapp? What is it, what is it about JM Lapp? Why did you choose them? How do you balance honoring JM Lapp's history while leading it into the future? Because that's what you're doing right now. And you're not a founder, which I think is significant. And if you're listening and you are a founder, you want to hear what he has to say, because a founder can start something. And I'm speaking as a founder. I am one. So don't be offended when you hear me say this. But we can only take an organization so far. And then we need an integrator and an operator, which is what you are. So tell us about that.
Yeah, why JM Lapp? And for 3 years, I would say, first and foremost, that visionary integrator relationship, if that wasn't solid, I wouldn't be there, right?
Yeah.
It would have been an opportunity for me to find my next thing, and I would have been grateful, and Matt would have been thankful. But I'm still there, and I'm committed. We just celebrated 20 years.
Come on.
And we just had an all-company meeting this morning, and we talked about the next 20. And so,
I love that visionary thinking.
yeah. And so the beauty of a visionary integrated relationship that's built on high trust and real conflict and real head-to-head conversation and wrestling.
You were talking about the legit
Yeah.
stuff that needs to be talked about with
Yeah.
visionary and integrator.
Oh yeah, no,
They don't
it's
work
huge.
without that.
No, because the illustration that came to us, Matt and I, is sometimes if you look at the horizon,
Yeah.
sometimes the visionary can look so far beyond the horizon that nobody else is like, what is he talking about?
Right.
Right.
Guilty.
Sometimes that founder can go way into the bug dust and into the pothole that feels like we're falling off of the Grand Canyon, but it's like, whoa, it's just a pothole. Right. And so having that integrator and leadership team, it's really about the leadership team that he's allowed me to build and invest in. Yeah. To say, look, this near horizon, you got to trust the system. We're building a system. We're building process. We don't have all the answers every time there's a pothole or an inefficiency or a miss, but we have to allow the leader to own it. Yeah. And learn from it and shape the team and shape the process. And so first and foremost, that relationship, beyond that, the team, quality team, the leadership team at JM Lapp, really summarized with humility and an eagerness to learn and grow. Yeah. When there's an eagerness to learn and grow where title doesn't matter, pedigree doesn't matter, there's just truly a willingness to learn and iterate. And we've even built a model around change called the reassess model. We're constantly reassessing, we're reassessing, adapting, and accelerating. And through that, the expectation is we're going to keep skinning our knee, but we're moving forward.
That's huge, Ilya. And the fact of how you've been able to create that relationship with a founder, that visionary integrator relationship. I read a book, I think we talked about this, but years ago called Rocket Fuel. Mm-hmm. My business partner gave it to me, and he's an integrator, and I'm a visionary. Go figure. It unlocked for me an understanding of how to attain rocket fuel, how to attain where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, but then to realize it wasn't about where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do. It was about where we were going as a team and what we were doing. And that was fascinating to me. And so it's so cool that you've been able to, I'm trying to remember how you said it. You said it in the beginning because you clarified something that I think is really, really critical in that relationship. I believe you said trust. Mm-hmm. So I've experienced that, and I'm very aware of how rare it is because I've started multiple companies, been involved in multiple companies in varying levels. And my original partner, we have that trust. I haven't always had that. Mm-hmm. Without it, there's no reason to do it. And it is super difficult to be able to accomplish. Once you've tasted that, it's very difficult to experience it without that. Mm-hmm. And I would even go as far as to say it's not worth it because the headaches and the heart. Like, this is not easy. What you're doing is not easy. A few weeks ago, you and I talked, and we won't talk about it online, but you shared some very honest feelings about how hard it is. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think that your family and your history, you have a level of tenacity that's probably in you from a generational thing that your father has given you that most of us are just scratching the surface of, understanding the tenacity of not giving up, of pushing through. But it's really hard to do when you don't have trust. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that you guys have that, I think that that's the one catalyst in that rocket fuel that sometimes isn't talked about, because you can't implement certain levels of practicality and make it work the same way that you can when you have trust. Yeah. Like, it's the secret to it all.
Yeah. And that comes through iteration. That comes through connecting. Truly connecting and challenging each other around the horizons and expectations, and because you can't fix everything at once.
No.
And so knowing, I think Elon Musk says it well. He said the blessing and the curse of a founder is staring at the abyss of hopelessness while chewing glass at the same time. And so you can, back to, like, you got cash flow, you got profitability. Yeah. So many things, so many. And so for me, I would say, having worked with senior leaders and owners, and founders, when the founder is humble,
Yeah, come
man,
on.
he can attract a lot of people. He or she,
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
And but to stay in that state of
Yeah.
humility and trust, and knowing it's going to take a team, and not just picking out or finding the hopeless abyss of a bad situation or a lost client or
Yeah.
but trusting that we're surfacing the issues timely, and then that leadership team is going to respond, and the system that we are putting in place will respond.
Yeah.
And through that too, I would say for integrators, there's so much written about visionary integrator, the whole EOS model, all that.
Yeah.
Without the right boundaries, the integrator can get burned out, because the integrator by design is not a shock absorber for a visionary that doesn't trust the vision integrator and the leadership team.
Yeah.
Because if that's not in place, then that's all you are.
Yeah.
And you can't.
No, you're 100% right.
You can't.
Well, and I think that I would even go a step further. The visionary, an integrator is not a shock absorber either for all of the things that happen in the business, but the visionary can be. And when the visionary and the founder, you can be, because, when you're a founder, you've experienced things that other people haven't. And integrators very much want to integrate a system, make it function. I do this will happen. And that's a good way to look at it. The problem is, this is business. It doesn't always work that way. And a visionary can come alongside an integrator and help absorb when it doesn't work that way. But if the visionary is the one that is creating the issue that the integrator has to absorb, which is what you're talking about, that doesn't work, because they're not created to, you're not wired to be that shock absorber at that level. Yeah.
And respecting each other's perspective. All my conversations, regardless of whether there's context or not, I trust the instinct of a founder. There's something there, and then trusting the system to address it. So, I mean, we could do a whole panel on that, or a whole conversation on that. But my heart for founders and all that they hold, the risk. There's nobody that's carrying more risk than a founder, especially if it's majority owned.
Yeah.
And so to build and trust, I mean, it takes so much faith to want to keep growing. And most people don't want to grow, because it's you're putting yourself out there.
You talked about that earlier, about the humble humility that you need to maintain. I don't know if you talked about that or I just thought about it, but the reality is, I believe founders, we have this thing where I actually think in business you have to aspire to continue to grow. It doesn't always mean in a vertical mindset. It doesn't always mean, but growth should be continual. If you're not growing, you're dying. That's my personal belief. But growth doesn't mean this way or that way. Growth is in all aspects. And to that point, you talk about Elon Musk and the way that he's talking about looking at things. Well, if you're growing as a founder, well, then you're continually founding the next level and continue founding the next level. Because one of the things that I've learned over 20 years of being in business, over 2 decades, is that it's always a refounding of what's next, and it's like, okay, well, now we're operating. And if I'm being totally honest, when we reach a certain point of operation, I'm bored. But if I move to the next level and I'm willing to let our team grow, well, then there's a whole nother level of founding, and that keeps me humble, because I don't sit around counting my dollars. I don't sit around getting soft and sitting on my laurels. There you go, Grandpa. I'm saying something that you used to say to me. I'm not sitting there waiting. I'm going, okay, what's next? What's next? Where do we invest? Where do we invest? Where do we grow? Where do we grow? How do we improve? And those things are important. I think it's a great segue into something I wanted to ask you. This is something that I have researched about you, and not just research, but we've talked about this. Flow versus hustle. And I think this is something very different between founders and integrators. Tell me if I'm wrong, and I'm okay with that. You can call me wrong on my own podcast, whatever, no judgment. But I would assume that hustle is more of a founder thing and flow is more of an integrator thing. And they're both important, and they both matter, and they both exist throughout a company. But in our conversations that we've had, you've talked about flow. And I would say I'm curious about what you think about flow versus hustle. What I see is that when flow is operating the way it should be, hustle is incorporated into flow. But what would you say related to flow versus hustle?
Whew. Yeah, you tapped into kind of the question of what is love, right?
Ooh,
Yeah.
boy.
Oh yeah. So I'm gonna go deep here.
I like this.
So there's a great book. So for context, this gets at the E-myth, the
Yeah.
idea of founders and hustle and the technician mindset.
Yeah.
But I'm going to put that to the side.
Okay.
Highly recommend it. But because the reason I say what is love, what is flow, there's a lot on flow state. So the way we look at it at JM Lapp and the leadership team is flow is truly an emergent thing that happens from the participation of the parts.
Yeah.
So that can happen with the leadership team. That can happen with the visionary integrator. That can happen with the functional manager, leader, and their team. And it is a direct outcome of the collaboration and the willingness of people to be candid, the willingness to address issues in the moment.
Yeah.
It's chair time. I mean, the flow state when experienced on a leadership team or with someone that's locked up,
Yeah.
that happens from a vulnerability of addressing the issue, saying, "Hey, I'm feeling this. Like, what's going on here?" It's like, all right, let me help. Let me understand it. So the flow state is an emergent property, a systems thinking type of, property, reality, just like love.
Yeah.
Like, how does someone feel love, right? It's a lot of things. And so hustle, is often seen by effort or long hours. And I think in the trades in particular, it's, who's first in and who's last out. And are you working 55 or 65 or 85 hours, like hustle,
Come on.
and flow says, do you need to do that? Right?
Yeah.
Do you need to do that? The flow state and the idea of not forcing things, but actually having the humility to say, I may actually not have the right answer. I feel friction.
Come on.
I see an issue.
Come on.
But I don't know the solution. And so by engaging in that, you're actually opening up to the wisdom of others.
Yeah.
And in that, there is an exchange. I mean, there's a lot written about, like, the idea of soul genius is a myth. There is no soul genius among us. C.S. Lewis talked about there's no originals. We all borrow from each other.
It's true.
So the idea of opening up yourself to other input puts you in a flow state where you can be more efficient, not just by sheer effort and pushing through or forcing outcomes,
Yeah.
but actually
on.
understanding the right issue. So oftentimes it's the issue is we're focusing on the wrong issue. The latter, we're painting the wrong wall.
Yeah.
So to me, it's one of those things where the flow state happens through communication, through trust. It's all these things where it's not just process. Process is critical because that's where expectations are understood.
Yeah.
But it also taps into the even a broader topic of one's conception of an organization.
Yeah.
Is it a system? Is it a machine? Is it a family? Is it a team? Is it an ecosystem? And so how is feedback in a machine? It's either right or wrong, right? How is feedback in a family? There's belonging, there's more grace. How is feedback on a team? There's a scoreboard, right? What's feedback look like in an ecosystem? Look at Yellowstone. The wolves needed to be reintroduced for it to thrive. Needed a
I
predator.
actually know about that. Yeah.
Right. It's phenomenal. So for me, grabbing various aspects of the conception of an org, but really trying to build an organization that's built on an idea of an ecosystem.
Come on.
Where feedback is what helps everything in the ecosystem to adjust. More of this, less of that.
Yeah.
To me, that's the flow state. Hustle says we just need more of this. We need more, like more of a machine and more time out there. And the flow is a lot more aware. From a faith perspective, that's what Scripture says. We're a part of a body. Like that's ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
Like you need every part. That's why the whole false dichotomy of doctors and lawyers and plumbers. No, you need the whole part. It's what are you called to? What are you good at? How are you going to, bring peace and thriving to your community by doing what you do great, like run your race. So all of that, I mean, it's connected to identity, to motivation. So that's flow. I mean, there's a lot.
I love that. It's interesting. You talk about that flow versus hustle. And you even reference faith, which I think is really interesting because I think In Matthew 6:33, and I quote this a lot, it says, "Seek first the kingdom of God, and all else will be added unto you." The reality is, when we're in the flow, those things fall into place, meaning flow in trust in the Lord. Hustle can be, faith without works is dead, and works without faith is also dead. All of that being said, as a founder, I struggle with, I was literally just having this conversation the other day where I'm taking off Friday this week to spend some family time, and work is busy and things need to get done, which, by the way, never is not that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't know if I should take off. And the comment was made, and that's because I think I have a misunderstanding of flow versus hustle.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like the hustle, and please don't misunderstand, sometimes you got to do the job and you got to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do that. But when you talk about flow in the way that you just talked about it, one of the things that I love is efficiency. And I've learned efficiency is not always hard. We tend to think it's like, well, if I put in the work, then this will happen. And I think we're to be diligent, but we have to recognize, well, me staring at this problem over and over again for the next 3 hours, is that going to get it figured out? Or do I need to let the team figure this out? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I really struggle with as a founder is the hustle aspect of it, feeling like I need to figure it out. Mm-hmm. When if I invite that collaboration, well, then we can flow together as a team. And maybe tell me if I'm wrong in the way that I'm going here, but it's
no, you're getting at what I often is stated on our team is let it simmer. This guy from Virginia, also another way of saying it is let the sun set on it.
Ooh.
I used to work with a guy, Ray.
I like that.
Wise Virginia statesman. He said, let the sun set on it. And then I heard somewhere picked up, let it simmer. And so
I like that.
I used to be a short cook. I love that concept of simmer.
Yeah.
You truly got to let something simmer.
Yeah.
And so to know you can take it so far and be like, let's let it simmer. Let's let the sun set on it and come back to it.
Yeah.
So, the effort, there's something that you said that maybe it connects to, maybe it doesn't, but in light of the whole work-life balance, for me, I get it. I call it work-life integration.
Yeah.
It's more kind of what I've experienced. I've also heard rhythms.
Yeah.
But to me, it's good to have boundaries. It's important to have things, but I've just never experienced that to be effective for me to say, this is it. To me, you live one life.
Come on.
And it's integrated. And so how you keep boundaries while living an integrated life, that's for everybody to figure that out at home and with their family. But to bring my mom back into this, as it related to whether it was serving or volunteering, in my young 20s, 30s, having 5 kids, I'd often talk through this. And if it was anything related to volunteering, it would be church, school, coaching, she'd always say, your hours can be multiplied like that. You prioritize where you want to invest.
Yeah, she's right.
That efficiency, that, the unlocks that can happen, what would typically take you 8 hours can happen in an hour.
Yeah.
There's something about that. The whole, Covey talked a lot about first things first and, a lot of that. So not a proponent to get burned out by every board appointment and every coaching opportunity, because those opportunities come, especially the young, successful, driven people. There's more opportunities than you can address.
Yeah.
That said, being overloaded, I've seen more blessing, more opportunities, more relationships. But it wasn't hustle. It was prioritized output.
No, I like that. Talk to me about systems versus people. I know this is something that you like.
Yeah. I mean,
are we okay? We've been talking for a while here. I mean, is the chair still doing its thing?
This is comfy.
Okay, good.
This is comfy.
Good.
Mine are a little lower in the armrest, so hopefully I don't look weird or undersized.
Nah, you don't look weird at all. I like the higher chairs because it hides my fat.
I have a good buddy who this would fit him perfect. He's about 6'5".
Yeah, these are great. These are bourbon and a fire.
Yeah,
so
well, that would be him.
Yeah,
that's definitely what we'd be doing. So, I think it ties into this concept of hero.
Come on.
So I think oftentimes in our culture there's the idea of hero, and even the whole idea of founder or president, CEO, somehow, some way that that means something.
Yeah,
and it does, but in the context of moving an organization forward to a desired future,
Yeah.
the first thing any investor looks at is key man risk, right? Especially for small middle market organizations. If investors coming in, the first thing to look at is key man risk, which all that means is how tightly is the founder in this? Is he running it? Is he making the shots? Is he doing the hiring? Is he writing all the checks? Is he how essential is the key man, is the founder to it? So, and that reality, that key man risk can be at a department level. Who's the senior technician? Who's the senior installer? Who's the senior electrician? Like, how much of the organization is around the hero? And so, I don't know if it's just the trades. I think it's everywhere. I think we value subject matter expertise, and it's essential.
Yeah.
But building organizations that are built on systems where there is a learning that's happening, organizational learning, that you can take an apprentice, someone from 11th grade or 12th grade in high school, and start training them properly in a way that they can grow.
Yeah.
And that ties into every part of the business, where the systems, the dashboards, the feedback from within the system is what you're looking at. You're not looking at, tribal knowledge or gut level, even though I value the gut brain a lot. So
I think that's really good. How do you know when it's a people problem versus a systems problem?
It's usually both.
It's usually both. So I don't think that's a cheat answer, but if you can, for people who are listening,
that's a stall.
Elaborate.
I think that's a stall.
It's a stall. It's usually both. Well, to fully be disclosing here on the line, I invite people to step up to the line and have a real and honest conversation with me. They have no idea what I'm going to ask them. So I have had time to prepare. You have not. Yeah. And so we don't edit anything either. So good luck.
So one of the things I picked up in the nuclear industry, which I love, they brought from the aviation industry, human factors, human performance. And so it's this concept that, and it probably goes back to Deming and continuous improvement, where ultimately it is a people issue, and that's the leadership. Ultimately, it comes down to owning it, and the leaders own it. They created the system, they created the process, and so we would have safety incidences or quality issues. There was this quick desire to blame it on someone. Who didn't strike the arc? Who didn't, why did this weld fail? Why, there's an incident. Who was fired? Whatever.
Yeah.
And to have the discipline to say, hold on, how did that happen?
Yeah.
What could have been done to prevent it? What engineering controls could have been done to mitigate or eliminate the risk, both from quality or safety or in any domain? If it's off standard, ultimately leadership owns it. Obviously, there's neglect. There's willful, error of commission where people do something they shouldn't. But I don't know what the percentage is. I'll just say something that comes to mind. 70-80% of issues are system issues, right? They're not human people issues. The systems allowed it. So ultimately, who's put the system in place? It's leadership.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the most accountable answer that I try to live by.
I like that.
Is at the end of the day, we can blame all day. That doesn't change what we do, who we become tomorrow.
I compare that to what I would call an owner's mindset, and that is, I'm my title, which I hate titles, but my title is chairman and CEO, and all that means is ultimately, whether I have team members that are operating things that I'm involved in or not, I've initiated something there. And if those systems fail, whose responsibility is that ultimately? And when you say, a systems versus a people problem, well, systems are implemented by people. We need accountability. Without accountability, what's the point? There is nowhere to go for what's the answer. How do we solve this problem? What do we do? And I think it's important to have that owner's mindset that, okay, it's a people problem. That doesn't mean the systems didn't play a part in it, but what do we do? Why do you think it is, and this is not a question that I've even prepared for, but it's just coming to me like, why do you think it is that we struggle so much with taking responsibility for things and grabbing onto that and being like, okay, because I feel like in leadership teams, sometimes there are individuals and sometimes they're me. I want to be really honest about this because, but we want to ignore and push away acknowledging fault, acknowledging blame, or acknowledging those things. And it's like, why is that so difficult for us as people to own it when that happens?
Yeah, I think that's tapping into like anthropological type domains.
Yeah.
I think it's deeply embedded in whether it's saving calories, whether it's pride, whether it's
Wow.
I actually think it's the lazy answer, because I've seen it. It's like who done it kind of a thing, right? So I just know, I think this is one of those concepts for leaders. Like you got to decide what you're going to believe, and then hold yourself accountable to that standard, because it's going to be easy to fall into the blame it culture.
Come on.
Right.
Come on.
So it reminds me of a professor who just passed away, Jamshid, phenomenal guy, exile from Iran.
Wow.
During the revolution, came here, brilliant guy, went to UPenn, systems thinker. His quote was, "A system is perfectly suited to get the results that it gets. A system is perfectly built to get the results that it gets." So that's the idea that, yeah, you can influence the future. You can understand the current state. And so you have to understand the context. And so that's owning it. And so ultimately, I think probably industrial era type management, thinking around inputs, outputs, the right variables, the right math, and we get what we want. But in all of that, especially in the service economy, in the trades, there's this thing called free will, people, choice. Yeah. And so you can only engineer so much. Shaping that and owning it, I found ultimately it's the greatest walk of emptying yourself, humility, because the only way, let's say the only way, to get the results that we need to get in the trades, people have to own it. And you hear it, but what does that mean, right?
Yeah.
And it's at such a deep level. Like if leadership doesn't model that, they don't inspire that, if they don't challenge that, if they don't encourage the heart along the way, you're going to be more of a machine.
I think the thing that I would like to say to that is, as far as leadership goes, I've often struggled with making the phone call when it comes to owning it for me. Often in my mind, the phone call is worse than it actually is. Mm-hmm. And I would just state, as a leader, you've been called to own it. Mm-hmm. When we own it, it's never as bad as we feel like it's going to be. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, when you own something, when you own a mistake, when you own a system not functioning the way that it should have, and you implemented the system, when you own those things, that gives you the ability to pivot and make a change and actually succeed, versus when we don't own it, it's kind of like an ostrich putting their head in the sand and not acknowledging what's really going on.
Yeah. What gets me nervous as an overconfident leader that says, "I got it. Don't need help. I figured it out. I've got a plan." Right. And so owning it is, okay, maybe you did have a plan, but as soon as it's off course, be proactive, and what are you learning from it? So I think, creating that culture of keeping those cycles of learning shorter. Yeah. So there isn't the train's off the cliff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've recently been learning some things with some team members where it's like, you need to tell me early and quickly when things are off, so that we can make the changes that need to be made. And if people aren't, well, why aren't you telling me that? And there's two things. One, I'm not providing an opportunity where they feel comfortable to do that, or they're wired in a way that they can't do that. And if you can't do that, then this isn't the team for you. If I'm part of the problem and I'm not providing an avenue for you to do that, well, then I need to figure that out, and I need to change that. And so it's like, if you can't tell people when things are going wrong, if that's too hard for you. I recently heard a comment about, mom was asking this guy advice, and she said, I'm a single mother and I'm raising a young man, and I want some advice on how to make a good man. And he said to her, well, I really love the way you framed that. He said, you asked how to make a good man, not a nice guy. And this is why I share this, because this was really intriguing to me. And he goes, the world doesn't need nice guys. The world needs good men. And he commented on something Matthew McConaughey wrote who I don't think is a great philosophical philosopher, but this is good that he wrote. And he said that, a good man knows his boundaries. He sets those boundaries in place and he holds those in place. A nice guy goes along to get along. Well, the world has had enough of that. Going along to get along doesn't actually get you anywhere. And the importance of us setting boundaries and working towards those. And so I just loved that interaction of making good men versus, and this is not sexist, good women, good men, good leaders is what I mean. And a leader understands boundaries. If you've ever worked on a job, and I used to tell guys this, I trained a lot of project managers, and it would be like if we were working for a client and they had a superintendent, we were a specialty trade, so we always were working for a general contractor or a construction manager. And if the superintendent or the PM that we were working for was a nice guy, we threw flags on the field knowing that that was dangerous. And the reason was they would never tell us if something was off. So we wouldn't find out until it blew up. And then they were nowhere to be found because they were a nice guy and they weren't going to stand up for us. And so it was our fault that it didn't go well. And so it's like, but when you're dealing with someone who understands boundaries and they understand how to set them up, well, then it doesn't matter if it's the client, if it's you or whoever, and they can often be viewed as not a nice guy. It doesn't mean they're not kind, but it's like, I would rather have a guy who's going to tell me how it is so that I know, rather than be in a meeting and find out that everything's my fault and I never knew anything about it.
Yeah. That just reminds me of something we talk a lot about is assertive communication.
I like that.
My wife and I do some marriage mentorship, and we always talk about communication with young couples. And I know this is a business conversation.
Oh, no, it's all right.
But it's relevant because at the end of the day, it's about expectations. And that's ultimately why marriages fail and partnerships fail.
Come on.
Unfulfilled expectations. So, we've incorporated this into our interview process, and we try to understand how people communicate. And then at the end, if we do offer the job, I make it personally very clear. There's 4 modes of communication. I want to be clear about what's in, what's out. What are the boundaries? Yeah. Because Patrick Lencioni talks about this a lot.
I love him.
Right? False harmony. That is a cancer that will eat you from the inside out. Yeah. Right. Because too many nice guys.
Yeah. Come on.
Or just passivity.
Come on.
Or passive aggressiveness.
Come on.
Which is out of the 4, never okay.
Yeah.
Right? Passive aggressive.
Never
where you're standing up on the outside, sitting down on the inside. Nobody knows what to do with that.
Exactly.
The other 3, you can be passive. You don't have to attend every battle you're invited to. You can just let it go. You can be aggressive. If the house is on fire, I say you can yell, scream, cuss, break things.
Yeah.
Get the family out.
Come on.
Right? You can be aggressive.
Yeah.
But those 2, that's what, 5% of our life, 2% of our life. We can be passive or aggressive, but contextually, situationally, if it works, it's necessary.
Yeah.
Passive, I think, is more than 5%. You can let a lot of things go. You don't
yeah. Well,
but
historically, Adam started that.
Yeah,
so
that's true. But assertive is, I need for you to get this from me. I need this from you.
Come on.
Right. That assertiveness.
Yeah.
There should never be any energy. I think
agree.
one of the big misconceptions about this whole talk straight, give it to me straight, is that somehow there's motive, somehow there's energy, somehow there's calling you out, addressing the resistor. No, it's hey, for me to get you what you need from me, I need this from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like that every time. I don't care if you're in the front office, in the field. Hey, for me to get you what you need, I need this from you. Whether it's schedule, whether it's budget, whether it's start time, finish time, whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I think that assertive communication is something that, we all can learn to implement more often.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if we're doing okay for time, but I'm just going to keep going because what are you supposed to say when we're on air and I ask that question? No, I really got to go. Sorry.
I followed your cue. I turned off my phone, so we're
there
good.
You go. We've only been doing this for 5 minutes. So this is one of my last questions that I want to ask you. And I gave you a heads up earlier, and you said you listened to the podcast, which, if you're listening, by the way, we have a listener here. So,
what do the radio show guys always hear? First time, long time?
I like
First time caller, long time listener?
That's right.
I listen to a lot of AM radio in my sales days.
I always ask people this question, and for me, It's one of my favorite questions, and I would say I've received comments and information from our listeners that this is probably one of the things that brings the greatest value. What is a mistake that you've made in leadership in your career or in life that you'd be willing to share with us that you've learned from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll appreciate the heads up, because there's many I could choose from, but just having a little bit of head start, I was able to distill it. I think distilling it to my proclivity is change, leading change, driving change, more change. I'm very adaptable. You know my origin story. I survived. Right?
Yeah.
I survived. I adapted. I overcame.
Well, that's definitely generational for you, for sure.
But in an organization setting, and organizations are built for stability, and when you introduce change, it resists. And so, for me, leading change, some of my biggest learnings, and shortcomings have come from a lack of, and this just happened this spring through our one-on-ones and our annual review process, our check-in meetings, where it became clear to me with all the change that we were doing, we were doing digital transformation, going all digital, becoming more of a services company, and being clear on our market segments, making a lot of decisions and change with the leadership team. But what started happening was a them and us feeling, a perception. And one thing I've learned in life, perception is reality.
Yeah, come on.
And so for me, the gut punch, and as a leader, you know what I'm talking about. When you are accused of being distant, when you are told, not say accused, that's actually what people are feeling, where they feel you're distant, and you listen to feedback, and it's back to expectations, fair or unfair, the sense of, man, they feel neglected. Right. And so lack of connection for me, I would say, because it's such an antithesis of who I am, to actually see that the thing that I was leading created the unintended consequence was a lack of emotional connection with the very team that you're betting on. Right. I would say that those were deep learnings of leading change. There's a speed of change that's necessary, but not losing the connection. And so I'm in the midst of learning that and what I need to do to correct that. As I said, we had an all company meeting this morning, and one of the things that I mentioned to the leadership team, got consensus, agreement on, we need to be more intentional with connection. How we celebrate retirement, how we connect throughout the summer, the fall. So we're casting vision and actually booking things. We're booking things. I love to cook. The Blackstone's coming out.
Come on.
And it's some of these things that, sometimes you cringe, like, really? But it's like, when I say cringe, like, at the end of the day, when you're driving strategy, building team, building a business model, it's actually walking slowly in the hallway.
Come on.
Is more important than the strategy doc.
I totally agree.
And so I think the lessons of, you can't rush it. You can't, you can't, you got to let the pizza rise. You got to let you have to, what you're building, there's elements that are less natural for you. And I think some of that is the size of organization. At some point here soon, I'll need an HR generalist. I'm wearing a few functional hats. But even in that, I'm rationalizing my learning, right? At the end of the day, a leader's role is to build a culture where people connect, where people are seen. That's been the word for me, is seen. I've been helping people unlock in the chairs, but actually, so to hold myself accountable, to say my door's open. The truth is, it's most of the time closed, and I'm doing meeting with either leaders or others. The hinge swings both ways. I need to open it up, go to the shop floor, go to the shop, go to the field.
I think that's something that's really important as you grow in leadership. We forget. I used to get frustrated with people, be like, well, why didn't you tell me about this? And I did not realize how leadership can make me seem unapproachable to certain people. And that's not on them. It's on me to make myself approachable. And I mean, that's what it's about. And it's like, and I have to recognize that there is a distancing factor that I must overcome. that happens that if I'm not actively trying to overcome it, I continue to be distanced. And I would put it this way. I always talk to people as they grow in leadership, even within our organization, that, when you have a different title, when you have this role or this role or this role, and you say something, your volume is already louder. Like I realized a long time ago, I had a foreman and I'd be like, hey, can you take care of this weekend? Can you work this weekend? Can you do this weekend? Or can you work late tonight? Or can you do this? Or can you do that? And I was fine with if he would say to me, no, I can't. We had plans this weekend. We were going to do this. I'm going to my son's ball game tonight. I was fine with that. Except I didn't even realize I was the president of the company. So the volume with what I spoke was the president's asking me if I can work late tonight. He would never even tell me that he had a game that he had to go to. He would never tell me that they had plans for the weekend. And so what it did to me and what you're talking about and what I think we need to recognize as leaders is, one, we need that connection. We need that so that they feel like they can talk to us like that. But we also need to recognize the volume of our voice from the positions that we sit in. Because I had to learn, I'm not asking that guy if he can work this weekend. And as our company grew, I stopped being the one to ask that question. Mm-hmm. And I started being like, okay, can you ask that question? Because no one wants me to work on the project because it's not going to be nearly as effective if you're paying the bill. Just saying. But I hear what you're saying. Yeah. I think that's really good. I think that being approachable is essential in leadership. Yeah. And it's something that we must actively pursue because it's not natural.
Yeah. If I can just double tap on that, because when somebody tells you you're not approachable, don't get defensive.
Yeah, come on.
Like there's a lot of courage that is being brought forth to say you're not approachable.
Yeah.
Like they're just not mudslinging.
Yeah.
So don't get defensive. And I think for me, but it's going to feel like an attack.
It is.
And the back to the system is perfectly suited to get the results that it gets.
Come on.
So I look back, what did I do the last year? Not out there connecting, right?
Yeah.
That's what the business required. So there is some short-term pain. But when you recognize that, acknowledging that and doing your best, because even though I talk about flow, I lock in. And you can only focus on so many things. And even having different levels of leadership, I think a lot of it, though, in all that, the expectations, there is an element of expectations and breaking down the them and us. That I still don't have all the answers. I'm actually have a piece I've been writing on that. There is an element of ownership and where does meaning come from for people.
Yeah.
But leaders being present, that is my main, I would say my biggest learning lesson.
Yeah.
Mistake, whatever you want to call it, learning lesson, right? We keep growing. That won't be forgotten.
We often get confused as leaders, I think, between presence and proximity. Mm-hmm. I've been working in my office and not realized that I haven't been present for people. Mm-hmm. Who am I kidding? I've been in conversations where I haven't been present. Mm-hmm. And I thought I was just because I was in the physical location of the conversation. Yeah. And so maybe I learned that from my wife. I don't know.
Yeah, no. And even here having this conversation, right? This is my first podcast and really dialing in and listening to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Not thinking about what I want to say.
Come on.
This magnifies it. And so if I made that faux pas, maybe it's going to be, super obvious.
Well, if you did, we're going to publish it for the whole world
Perfect,
to see.
Perfect. That'll be a great case. But in that back to that flow and the collaboration, it's looking at a pickup game of basketball or looking at a jazz ensemble. Nobody is thinking of what they're going to do next.
Yeah.
They respond.
That's
and I think in collaboration, are you listening to listen and understand, or are you listening to respond? Right, that presence piece.
Yeah, that's really good.
So I think for leaders that's a struggle because we're building. We're builders. I think we talked about that before the show. Yeah. There's something in that. And so just in all the literature around strengths and there's weaknesses that are exposed with that towering strength. There's a dark side of that strength.
100%.
I think presence is probably what takes a toll.
Well, it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Ilya, I really appreciate you stepping up to the line here, having a real and honest conversation with me. I love what you guys are doing at JM Lapp. I love it's the first time I heard about wanting to be the Chick-fil-A of plumbers. I love that. And I think that you guys are actively lifting the view of the skilled trades, which is something that we want to promote and be about here at Blackline. So
You want to hear something crazy before you wrap it up?
please do.
So Matt, our founder, just said this to everybody. He said, I've been saying we want to be the Chick-fil-A of plumbing and heating. Do you know what Chick-fil-A just got into through their Red Wagon Ventures?
No.
Home service. A-Crew.
That's hysterical.
The A-Crew is a venture of the Red Wagon Ventures,
Wow.
which is home services.
Wow.
Right? Handyman. They're starting in Atlanta. I'm checking them out.
Wow.
Reading. But my point is, what we do, like they figured out fast food and upskilled it to quick service.
Yeah.
It's not fast food. Chick-fil-A created a whole new category.
Absolutely.
They see the opportunity to serve others. They're getting into home services. So all that to say, we're in a great opportunity to serve people.
100%.
The generational trends are such that people don't even want to hang a picture in their house. They want help. They want to focus on other things. And who are we to judge any of that? We're here to provide service. And so it is an exciting time to be in the field that we're in.
100% agree.
In the full professional, not a technician.
I agree.
A full professional that's there to serve.
Well, and that word you use, service, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not about a technician. It's not about knowledge. It's not about any of that. It's about service. And it's like, how are we serving you, the client? How are we serving in what we're doing? Like I started this podcast with the story of the plumbing organization that I called. Guess they served me by sending out the guy with the experience, and I got to watch him mentor the other guy and come up with a solution.
That's how you recover.
And then also solve my problem at the same time, which provided a huge service to me. And that's what we want to be about in the skilled trades altogether, is providing a service to those who need that service. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, Ilya, thank you for stepping up to the line. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.